This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news, we do now have that dash camera video of the arrest and shooting of Mr. Keith Scott. I do want to warn our viewers before you watch this video, it is very difficult to watch. The content is disturbing. First, what we're going to show you is the dash camera video, that vantage point. It's 2 minutes long. Okay, these scripts need...
About 37, you took one up top.
He doesn't have it, but we have
And we're taking. Run start towards this nothing disturbance for shoe flags, correction flag, no flags, you know, parking lot, 8700 King, Wells Fargo. We're on third party, black no friend. They're playing your corridor flag, we had full. He was still making probably third party, so I'm going to be flag with over here. We have a control over here, guys. Yeah, we're back to Lloyd. TV service in Wells Fargo, 8700 James King. $260-22. Good. We got shots fired. One suspect down on Legacy Court. Yeah, more. Sorry, copy. How you guys start that way, y'all 10-4. All officers at 10-4, we got one suspect down. 10-4, you got 20 on Legacy. 10-4, you got 20 on Legacy Court. 10-4, we're right in the front. 10-4, side, you now know we're Legacy Court, please.
All right, that is what we have so far, about 2 minutes of that dash camera video of the officers pulling back up to the scene, and then you see the ensuing shots fired, and Mr. Keith Scott is killed. A lot is difficult, frankly, to make out from that video, even if you watch it up close. This is the first time I've viewed it, just as you've seen it, and this is the first time most of our panel members have seen it. Let me bring my panel back in. Tom Fuentes, we were speaking before we played that video. What stands out to you from it? Okay, don't have Tom Fuentes. Cheryl Dorsey, to you as a former LAPD officer, what stands out to you from that video? Again, that's just one vantage point. That's the dash cam. We're still waiting to be able to show you the body camera footage.
And so I'm second guessing the officers for sure, so be clear. But as he's stepping backwards, I don't see that poses any kind of a threat to the officers. I don't see a furtive movement that would justify the use of deadly force. And like I said in the beginning, Poppy, I'm very bothered by the fact that they left the scene, put on a vest, and then came back. I think in this instance, they may have exacerbated that situation, escalated that situation, because they're yelling, drop the gun, drop the gun. They saw him. They know he has it. They saw him sitting in the car rolling a joint. So for him to not drop it immediately, they've escalated this thing now to a use of deadly force. And understand, we know as officers, we're creating an audio record. So witnesses and others will say, well, I heard the officer say, drop the gun. It's picked up on the radio. This is problematic for me.
And that's a really important point. And
I should note, in many... I just want to make one quick note here, guys, and jump in that CNN has gone back to the police department to ask them whether or not these tapes have been edited at all, selectively edited, either in audio or video. As soon as we get an answer from them on that, we will let you know. This is just what they've released to the public. We don't know what, if anything, has been edited or how much longer it may have been than those 2 minutes that were released. But continue. What were you saying?
Yeah, well, first, that's something that has been raised by many observers. Have these tapes been edited? Has there been anything done to the sound or to the video? My observation when watching the tape, again, is I saw nothing that was immediately threatening. Now, of course, again, I'm not a police officer. I've never been in that situation. But the point is, looking at the video, there's no indication to me that he was an immediate threat to the officers, that there was any kind of reaching, any type of grasping. And yes, the thing that's most compelling in the officer's favor is this yelling of "drop the weapon." But I've seen this happen as an activist on the ground who's been involved in many of these sorts of incidents. Police will often, when they're attacking, when they're beating people, will say, "Stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting," so that there's a public record of them saying "stop resisting" while they're beating you. Saying "drop the weapon" as they shoot is a very common tactic, so that there's a public declaration that they ask the person to drop the weapon. The timing of that declaration and the urgency of that declaration and the legitimacy of that declaration are the things we have to question. Did they need to say that? Was the weapon raised? And then finally, just tactically, and we saw this in the case of Tamir Rice in Cleveland, it's like, if this person is such an imminent threat, do the tactics justify the response? Is this the appropriate way to deal with the circumstance? We watch him falling back here as we're watching. It doesn't look like he's an imminent threat. I don't see it.
Cedric Alexander, to you as a law enforcement analyst, what do you see in here that stands out to you? Because I think the key moment, right, is when Mr. Scott is out of the car and when he is backing away. But he does have a gun, according to the police, from their statement. You cannot see it in the video. What stands out to you here?
Well, one statement Mark just made is very true, and that is the fact that we weren't there. Maybe we didn't see what they were seeing, being eyes on in that particular moment, and we don't know how much of this has been edited. But let's set that aside for a moment. Really, one of the biggest problems here, Poppy, is going to be this. No matter, people are going to look at this piece of footage tonight, and they're going to have problems with it. And they're going to have problems with it because of the cloud of distrust that currently exists between police and community. That in and of itself is going to guide your perception about what you see in this video. And that's why I keep repeating, understanding that we're seeing bits and pieces of this, even as graphic as this is, what we're going to see, the next piece of video is going to probably be just as graphic, but the cloud and the lenses that we're looking out of now, it's going to be very, very difficult, in my opinion, for the public to look at this from any angle and be comfortable with it. And that's going to be the challenge. But there's going to be opportunities for this to go before a district attorney's office and maybe before whatever other process that may come into play. So there's some judgment on it that is not judgment that is based on what our observations are, but based on what procedure and court of law may think about this.
Paul Callan, to you, speaking about the legal ground here when it comes to a justifiable use of lethal force, is there any legal line, or do the courts, frankly, leave it up to the judgment of the police officer when they say that they felt that their life was in imminent danger? Is that the line, how they perceive it at the time?
Well, when the courts judge these cases, they use really a double standard. They use, first of all, a subjective standard, meaning the officer has to be able to say that he or she was actually in fear at the time deadly physical force was used, or that the officer perceived a realistic threat to the public. The second thing is the objective standard that Laura was talking about earlier, and that is, that's a standard that's based on what other police officers might have felt under similar circumstances. So in the end, they're going to be judged by how a reasonable police officer would have judged the situation. And I know from having tried many cases like this case, the one thing that lawyers always tell juries is it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback and look back in time and say, you know, this could have been handled differently. But that's not the standard that you judge a situation by. You have to judge the situation by what was going on at the time. And what I'm seeing in this case is a man who, by the statements of his wife, was mentally deranged. He suffered from a TBI. He possibly was either unmedicated or had just taken his medication. He's armed with
which is a traumatic brain injury for our viewers.
Traumatic brain injury, that's right. And he said, she said he just took his medication. Now she's suggesting to the officers that he's in an unstable state. They then find out that he's armed with a weapon, with probably a loaded
Paul, let me jump in. Paul, Paul,
Yes.
stand by. Let me jump in. I want to take you now to a live press conference there in Charlotte, North Carolina. The family of Mr. Keith Scott will be speaking right now. You'll listen to Justin Bamberg, a former state representative and someone who is representing the family in this case. Let's listen in.